Fundopolis?
So I'm excited to tell you about Fundopolis. We've been working on it now.
Because it's fun.
It
The
is.
first 3 letters in Fundopolis is fun.
And we did that on purpose. We've been working on this for about 3 years. And the idea kind of began because our founder, Jan, decided that he wanted to find a way to get ordinary citizens involved in investment. And kind of what started that is he has an asset management company and a real estate development company that really kind of caters to the investments of more wealthy citizens. And he found that the ones that were investing less, that maybe didn't have as much kind of expendable income.
Yeah, go ahead, go right through, guys. So anyway, yes, you want to get people involved in investing.
We really do. I mean, getting ordinary people involved, because investments to those people really mean a lot. And if you think about it right now, they're already investing in businesses because they're putting their money in the bank, and then the bank is making plenty of money giving that to businesses and recovering that with no benefits. No benefits other than the fact that they're getting access to capital. The idea behind equity crowdfunding is really exciting for small businesses and for ordinary investors, Joe Public on the street, because it really involves them in that process of taking their money instead of putting it in a bank and getting nothing out of it, and then a business getting money that essentially they're just repaying. This bank isn't doing anything for them. Connecting those two endpoints together and having those investors now be incented to give business to that company. They know that that's something that they own. Instead of just something that's collecting a 1 or 2% interest rate, it's something that they can go and they can visit and they can be a part of, they can tell their friends to go to. We think that that's really exciting. We think that that's something that's going to affect communities throughout the US, and it's going to really change us because it's going to empower communities to have some control over the businesses that serve them, and we think that's a really important thing.
Control and also ownership, I guess. They feel like they're actually owning a piece of whatever it is they choose to invest in. I think a lot of people probably don't realize when we keep our money in banks, the banks use our money to loan, and they make the money off the interest from the money that they loan other businesses or people, personal, whatever it is.
Exactly. And it's kind of educating them then that they're part of that process already anyway.
Right.
You know, that it's not changing their habits, it's just changing where they see that money go,
So how would they see that money, basically? Are you eliminating the bank as the middleman?
Absolutely.
So, which is usually, that is the spirit of what is happening here in this space with cryptocurrency, blockchain technology.
A lot of synergy there, yeah.
A lot of people are starting to wake up and realize how much control the banks have over us and what they've been earning off of us and off of people's backs, and this bridges that gap and takes them out of the middle.
But you're not getting anything in return. You're not getting satisfaction. You're not getting, your sense of ownership that you just referenced. I think that's really key to this whole thing. And it's not necessarily about putting banks out of business. It's let banks do what banks do well, and let people invest in businesses that they've been doing for hundreds of years and just not seeing the fruits of.
So how would they actually physically see the fruits of it through Fundopolis?
Well, that's a good question, because that's really what makes us different. So other crowdfunding sites that exist right now, they basically handle the preparation, the filing with the SEC, putting up the raise page that essentially acts as the website that collects the investments, and then writing a check at the end. All done, right? But to an investor, especially to Joe Public, that's sitting on the street, really doesn't really know what does it mean to have a share in a company. And okay, I'm coming to Fundopolis to invest in a company, but then what happens? My brother had made an investment in another crowdfunding site, and it was maybe a year and a half later. He still hadn't received any money, no notification, no one had contacted him, and the worst part about it is that he didn't even know what he was supposed to do to contact them. We think it's really important, and this is what makes us different, is we've established a cradle-to-grave approach which takes them through that raise and that initial investment. But think about it, for for the ordinary unaccredited investor, that investment is just the beginning of something that they want to be an exciting thing. They now own a piece of a company. What does it look like? Can I look at it? Is there a place that I can go and see it? We've created a system through the use of blockchain, and because we're in blockchain, it really kind of forced us to consider, because if we're going to issue the security in blockchain, we have to be part of that arrangement between that company and that investor for a long time, so we might as well develop some tools that can actually make that exciting for them. So we actually developed a payment system that can handle the payments for the company, so that for the investor, they know where their money's coming from. So if it's a revenue share or a debt instrument that's being paid down, they know exactly where their money's coming into, they know how they can get it out, they know when it's supposed to come in, and they can follow it on our site. And we think that that's really important, because I think if you think about the habits of ordinary people, that's something that's important to them. When they give their money to something, they kind of want to be able to go back to that same place and see.
Sure, they want to see how it's progressing. It's just as if people, when they invest in crypto or stocks, they want to be able to go check and see how their chosen stocks or crypto is doing. So would you say that blockchain is helping to provide that transparency for people to be able to see how their actual investment is returning for them?
Yeah, some of it. I mean, right now, I'm sure that I know you've been talking to blockchain companies for a little bit now, and I'm sure that you've heard regulation mentioned more than a few times. So right now, regulation is here. We're in an early stage on regulation. Ultimately, we want to be at a place where everything from a regulatory point of view is sitting on the blockchain, it's recognized on the blockchain, and ultimately we want to be able to have a trading platform where the money and the asset are sitting on the platform, and I don't need to involve a transfer agent, I don't need to involve a clearinghouse, I don't need to involve issues of custody, because we understand that blockchain handles that all by themselves. Now, from a technology perspective, that can exist right now. I can effect instantaneous trades on the blockchain.
Yeah.
From a regulatory standpoint, you can't. So the current systems that are set up for regulation really are required to use outdated databases in addition to the blockchain. And basically from the SEC and FINRA's perspective, the database, that older technology is essentially the source of truth for them, and the blockchain is merely a duplicate. Eventually, I think even the SEC, FINRA, they understand that this is the future, but until things like maybe regulation from Congress that rewrites the 34 Act so that it incorporates blockchain technology into that, because I think that's part of what they're struggling with, combined with maybe some guidance from the SEC and FINRA in terms of how things need to be interpreted, I think is important. But until that happens, we're not going to rush this game. I mean, we started with this with a very clear idea that we were going to be a regulated, absolutely by the book regulated environment, because we think that's the only way that you can exist in the United States. It's not going to happen any other way. We could move to Bermuda and we'd have a different environment. Right. But that's not what we want to do. We want to establish trust with users, with investors, and with issuers based on a very difficult regulatory environment. And if we can do that, and if we can provide this really larger scheme that we have in mind within that regulatory environment, I think we're going to establish trust that can extend throughout the United States and then internationally as well.